raise these high expectations, but I'll try, do my best. Thank you everybody for being here and for the invitation. As I was said, I'm from the ministry, and therefore I will focus my speech on Dutch policy on ICH and museums. So I don't have this fancy examples that we heard this whole day. It's a policy story. I'll do my best. Culture by and for everybody. That's the motto of the cultural policy in the Netherlands. In the latest policy document from our minister from last year, called Culture in an Open Society, our minister says, I quote, "Culture is significant for the future of our nation. In the public debate about identity and in the search of what connects us all, it is important that as many people as possible engage actively with culture regardless of where you live, who your family are, or what your own cultural background is." This also applies to the field of cultural heritage. Cultural education and cultural participation are seen as the core of our cultural policy. So, we could say that intangible cultural heritage is participation of communities, groups and individuals. Our government believes that we should take a broad and contemporary approach to ICH, including cultural manifestations by all groups living in the Netherlands. Young and old, from the craft of the mirror on wind and water mills to the Caribbean-inspired Rotterdam Summer Festival. In the Netherlands, we have organized our ICH policy in several different ways. Because we believe that the dialogue between ICH communities and the exchange of ideas about safeguarding practices are the primary issues, we have decided for a bottom-up approach to our ICH policy, in line with the UNESCO Convention. For instance, the Cultural Participation Fund, a government fund, recently published a subsidy scheme open for all kinds of ICH communities who will develop their ICH in a contemporary way. Communities, groups and individuals can register their heritage themselves in three ways, three circles. In the ICH network, the ICH inventory, and in the register of inspiring examples of safeguarding. The objective of the network is to make all manifestations of ICH in the Netherlands visible and to promote mutual cooperation. The inventory provides a broad overview of ICH by communities or practitioners who drew up a safeguarding plan and who are committed to actively safeguard their ICH. We have organized the mapping of ICH in the Netherlands in a bottom-up way as well. As I mentioned, the ICH inventory is an instrument for the communities to actively safeguard practices. And in the Netherlands, it is not the minister who decides which community and what ICH will be on this inventory. There is, however, a small review committee which is advises about the incorporation on the inventory. The Dutch Center for Intangible Cultural Heritage, Knijff, also represented here in Arnhem, coordinates the inventory of ICH elements and supports the communities in safeguarding their heritage. For instance, by organizing conferences on good practices of safeguarding and dialogue tables about sensitive and controversial ICH, but also to include migrant communities and contemporary ICH in cities. As Mark just said, last year the Netherlands became a member of the Intergovernmental Committee of the 2003 UNESCO Convention. This gives a special responsibility to take up the challenge to contribute to the development of the Convention and to new directions and themes. For instance, the dialogue on ICH in emergencies, the role of NGOs, and the discussion on the current listing mechanism. mechanisms. But also ICH and education in primary and secondary schools. On a national level, we are about to start a project with UNESCO schools in cooperation with heritage organizations to see what possibilities there are to bring intangible heritage into schools. Another priority in our ICH policy is visibility and safeguarding ICH of the Caribbean islands of the Kingdom. They also have ratified the convention. ICH is very much alive in the Caribbean islands, and vice versa, many communities from the Caribbean islands practice their ICH in the Netherlands. With the financial support of the Netherlands, UNESCO organized capacity building workshops on the islands and in Suriname. And recently, the islands and the Netherlands signed a declaration of intent for further cooperation. So, I think our ICH policy is directed towards the future. In the last part of my speech, I will zoom in on the topic of ICH and museums. In the Open Air Museum in Arnhem is a project that's called the Crafts Lab. 4 labs have been developed until now. It is an experiment in which crafts people are connected to artists and designers to see what are the possibilities to give the craft, like for example wood carving or creating paper, a future, and to incorporate new developments. To learn and to look in unexpected ways at traditional crafts is new for the craftspeople and for the artists. This is a very inspiring example of the connection between ICH and museums. Other museums in the Netherlands have asked how they could start such craft labs. It is a way in which new roles and functions of a museum become visible. I think we have seen some examples during the day as well. Participation and involvement of the public in museums has become more and more an essential ingredient in our museum policy. Museums are very diverse in the Netherlands. They preserve all kinds of collections and make them accessible for the public. It has become common to talk about the social role of museums. Museums have opportunities. They preserve objects which have important relevance to ICH communities. They can develop strong working relationships with these communities to preserve the objects and to make them accessible to the public with stories and documentation. The concept of intangible heritage suggests that through community partnerships, museums can find a useful aid in interpreting and displaying cultural objects in a museum. Museums can be a platform for an encounter between different stakeholders and communities. And it is true, museums have become more entrepreneurial and more inclusive and more open to the public. But I think that in the Netherlands, museums can still be more aware of the importance and chances of ICH. And to be aware of what they have to do to contribute to the dialogue with communities. They can help communities with their practices and objects. For museums, this is a way to connect with new groups in society and to incorporate them in museum activities. And that is why I think this project, IMP project, is so important. This is also important to realize when we talk about colonial collections and their presentation, provenance research, and possibilities for restitution. An actual debate in the Netherlands. Museums should connect with communities from whom these objects and the related ICH are of special significance. I know there are curators conducting conversations with communities about these objects. We are looking at ways how to have a dialogue based on equality and reciprocity between heritage professionals in the Netherlands and Europe and experts and communities in the countries of origins of these colonial objects. And also here museums could be a platform to have these kind of conversations. In this respect, I'd like to mention the current discussions on the ICON museum definition and the UNESCO museum instrument. I conclude with the words of the recent advice for and on museums by our Dutch Council for Culture to the Minister. They say, make the definition of museums more broad, explore the borderlines of the museum concept in which tangible and intangible heritage are united, and make new connections with society in multi-perspective ways. And we will take note of that in our future policy. Thank you very much.